Hey, hello everybody. I want to just test before I start if you guys can hear me okay. We had some issues with the audio last time, but welcome to the workshop. Really happy to have you all here again for another week and dealing with another different subject, and we're going to be going with this subject, this reference picture of Venice, but I'm going to be changing it up a little bit. So basically, this scene here is from what I know, I was back in Venice, and I'm not sure if some of you have been to Venice. Just let me know in the comments. We'll be keen to hear whereabouts you guys actually went. I was there really briefly in 2019, and this here is a photo I just found on 𝗢𝗙𝗡𝗍𝗍, and it's of 𝗪𝗙𝗪𝗔𝗍. I think that's where it is. It's basically like a one of the little islands off the main um, area in Venice. So I thought it was really nice because you've got a few different elements in here. You've got these nice soft kind of buildings in the background, and you've also got some water along with yeah, just a little bit of a foreground here where we might be able to get some people walking across. I'm thinking I might change it up a little bit and move the seat. So just basically, it looks a bit straight here, kind of just facing completely straight on. I might actually just change it so that it slants down a little bit. Maybe add in a few extra details here on the right hand side. We'll see how we go. So I just want to change it up a little bit, make it a little more interesting. So, let me know how you guys are going. Did some of you end up tracing it, or did you draw it before? If not, that's all good. Just watch along with me. I'm gonna give this a go and see how it turns out. I did have a quick sort of pre-sketch beforehand. Main thing though, I just want to make sure the audio is working okay because I did test it a few times before, just to make sure it was recording all right because it kind of got me a bit worried from last time where people were saying it was cutting in and out and stuff like that, and I don't want that to happen again. So I'll just check the chats and see how we are all doing. Okay, so we've got James Alcorn from Virginia. We've got Rhonda Wolf. Welcome, guys. Rupert Mehta, great to see you again. Angela Lucas from Florida. We've got Yvonne Uma from Michigan. How you going, Yvonne? Welcome back, and good to see you. Good to see you make it. And to see you last time as well in at 5 a.m. One of my random streams in the morning. Helen Huang from Malaysia. We've got Kate Taylor from Australia. Welcome, Kate. We have some more Australian viewers here. Arlene Fields from Canada. Hi, Arlene. We've got Alice here from Australia. We've got Mara and from Toronto. 8:30 p.m. Friday night. Fantastic. Great little activity to do to kind of wind down and yeah, just relax. So good we can all do this together as well. Makes it a lot easier and kind of a lot more motivating, I find, when you're doing something like this together. I know for a lot of us, being in lockdown and with some of the restrictions, it's the next best thing we can do. And I think a lot of internet gets a lot of bad rap sometimes, but I think using it for this sort of joint activity is fantastic. Really allows you to do something that wouldn't be possible otherwise. Prasanta, and we've got from Boston, and Marie. We've got Chad from Louisiana. A new viewer, Chad. I think you messaged me before. I think you asked something about the paper that I was using. People were asking what size paper. This is A4 or 8 by about 11 inches. For you guys over in the States. Let's have a look. Who else have we got? We've got Lindsay Bagay. Welcome back, Lindsay from Melbourne. Um, and Angeline Teo. We've got Joanne Bell. Fantastic. Audio is okay. All good. I'm just going to scroll down and see who else we've got here. We've got Jay, Leslie Ratner, um, Jennifer. Excellent. And you're not working today, so that's good. You could make it. Ratner, 𝗬𝗪𝗔𝗟, the 𝗬𝗪𝗔𝗟. That's another scene I want to paint sometime. I'll sort of draw the Rialto market as well. If you guys have heard the Rialto fish market over in Venice, it has these beautiful red sort of drapes curtains. You might have seen photos of them. Gregorio, I live in Ohio now, but I'm from Italy, and my hometown is about 1 hour drive from Venice. Wow, that's so cool. um, you probably have seen like a lot of these places. Well, being so close, that's really lucky. Charlie Robertson cutting out a bit. Okay, I think it should be better. I've checked the internet. I've checked the internet connection. But yeah, if what happens is you can't hear or there's some issues, I've always checked the stream afterwards, and it seems to have recorded okay. Sometimes the streaming can be a little bit choppy at times, depending on the connection, but afterwards it records and joins it all together fine. So if there's issues, I'll just go back to it later. This is great. Patricia, thank you for joining, Patricia, Donna. Lots of people here. We've got about, I think, how many people do we have? I think we've got about 110 at the moment, which is awesome. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through this scene of Venice. I'm going to show you how to draw it and show you how to paint it. And then I'm going to go through something a little bit more sort of straightforward. So just a pure watercolor painting. I've got a separate bit of paper which I'll do this one on. So I've just taped it down here. And this is I'm going to be showing you how to do a wet watercolors landscape. Very straightforward sort of landscape where we're just wetting the entire paper and just adding in small details. It can be a little bit frustrating at times when you start out because you'll notice that paint spreading and that kind of thing, but I'll show you just the timing, how and when I go in so that you can get a similar sort of result from myself. I've also done a little bit of sketching beforehand. I've tried to draw in a couple of little figures here just based on a reference photo. So some of this stuff here, it just helps before I actually go in to do the drawing, so that because I know I just wanted to get in a couple more interesting looking figures in here, and also a really quick sketch, something like that as well. But I do want to detail it a bit more. If you guys have any questions before I start about the materials and things like that I'm using, just let me know. I'll go over the materials real quick before we start, just so that you know essentially what I'm using. So today I'll be using some pigment liners. I normally use the Uniball pens, which the Uniball ballpoint pens, which have a ballpoint tip and liquid ink. These liners here, I got a few years ago, and they basically have, the difference is that they have a felt tip. Okay, so there's less absorbency into the paper, so the ink distributes a little bit more evenly, and there's less kind of flow. So when you sort of move the pen across the paper, you tend to get a bit of skipping. You don't get a very harsh line as you get with the Uniball pens. I do use both. I don't really have too much of a preference, but I do want to practice with these a little bit more. I find that you can get just a more subtle line using these. So I'll go through, just let me have a look at the chats and have a look who we've got in YouTube. Let's have a look. We've got Shanolan from Colorado. Welcome back, Shanolan. Yvette, how are you doing? Sandy Russ from Florida. Rudy, and we've got Cherie, and this is Paul from Pennsylvania. Great. It looks like everyone's going okay with the audio. So I'm really happy because that's the audio and video is very important. Sweet, Don Johnson as well from Kansas, US, and been to Venice. Sandy Russ, I've been to Venice 3 times and love it so much. We'll go back again if I have the opportunity. Yeah, it's such a beautiful, it's like such a magical place. You look at all the photographs and you think surely it can't be that good. It's always over exaggerated. People take pictures, but when you go there, it's just magic. I've never seen. Okay, let's have a look. Jill Jones. Remember to point to the reference photo. Okay, I'll do my best. I might be able to swap to the desktop and sort of show you. Yeah, if you're having issues knowing where I'm up to and on the reference photo, just let me know in the chats while I'm drawing. And I might be able to just switch over to the desktop and pull up the photo and kind of point it out. That's the only way that I know how to do it. I can't really get a cursor to move on the stream. I'd have to switch to like a whole different view. But yeah, I can definitely do that for you, Jill. So now, some people have asked me, how do you, when you're drawing, a lot of time, going in straight with the pen, are you worried? Are you going to make a mistake? That kind of thing. There. So I often make mistakes in all these drawings. There's never a drawing, especially when you're going in with pen, where you're doing everything 100% correct because you're using estimation half the time. So another thing you can do if you are worried that you're going to, make a mistake, or you just want to build up that confidence before you go on with the pen, you can just start with a pencil and get in some real basic lines for some of the big elements. So things like the horizon line, things like where the path starts over here, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and really just get started here. And like I said before, I do want to change up this reference photo a little bit so that instead of the ground being completely flat, I'm going to just move it just a little bit downward so that it's slanting a little bit across like that. I think that will create a bit more depth in the painting and in the drawing itself even, because this just looks quite flat on. I love this reference photo, but sometimes it's good to just add a little flair, something different, and try it out. See if it works. If it doesn't work, so be it, but give it a try. 0.5 pigment liner here, and I've got a 0.3 pigment liner, so these two I'm going to be using mostly. In terms of paintbrushes here, actually we'll go through paintbrushes later. We don't have to talk about that just yet. But like I said, I know some of you last time were a little bit worried about going straight in with the pen. You can start off with the pencil, go over it with the pen, and then rub it out with an eraser afterwards. So don't feel that you just have to go straight in, okay? So let's have a look at this scene. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to separate the horizon line. Now, it's pretty simple in this photograph because if we look at it, the horizon line is pretty much just in the center of the page. Now, you might want to change this around a little bit. Often when you put the horizon line right in the middle of the page, it can just look a bit, just a little bit too simple, too not really eye-catching enough. So you move the horizon line a little bit further up. What that starts to imply is that you're looking from a bird's eye perspective. So I'm thinking I might move it just a little bit up, slightly up, not too far, but just somewhere around here. Okay, so let's just draw this in about here. And notice with the pigment liners as well, the line that you get in is kind of quite broken, and you really have to push down on the paper a bit harder for it to make a line. Okay, and I'll bring up my reference photo. If you guys have your reference photo as well, I usually have a separate window, which I have it up. Okay, Mara, asking, is the drawing posted anywhere? I haven't done the drawing this time around. So I did a few little sketches last night, but I wasn't too pleased with them. They're just simple composition sketches. So there's only the reference picture up. So if you go into the discussion section, in the discussions, you'll find a couple of reference pictures in here, but there is a tracing template for this reference photo. So you can go in there and use that. That's a little bit easier for you to draw from, maybe a little bit easier. So you have a look at that. But I do recommend you just to draw along with me. You'll be surprised what comes out the other end. Okay. And so, a lot of the time I'm just making bits and pieces up as well as we go. Okay. So we've got the horizon line in. I've moved it up a little bit more. Next step, we're going to put in the line essentially where we have got the path. And in the photograph, it's completely flat. But I'm going to change it around a little bit so that it sort of comes in at a little angle, but we're not going to make it all too obvious. Okay, so go in here, and I'm just going to shift this. coming down on a sort of angle like this. And when I draw larger lines, I tend to hold the pen at the back like this, and then I use my entire arm like that. Okay, something like this, maybe on a bit of an angle. You don't have to put it on this angle. If you want, you can just put it completely straight, but I just want to experiment around with this a little bit. Okay, and essentially what we have here are the two basic components. Okay, everything else in the drawing is going to be based on these two lines that we put in. So we think of the buildings, for example, here in the back. We know they sit on the horizon line, and we've got the boats, which are in the center, and then we've got the foreground here, and then maybe a few figures and things like that over here as well. So these are probably the two most important lines, and probably the two easiest lines to put in at the start. Okay, and like I said before, you're just looking at the reference photo and seeing where these two lines generally fall, and it's just two straight lines like that. Okay, fantastic. So what I'm going to do, I really liked just having some figures in here, some larger sort of figures walking around. So I've got these couple here that I drew a bit beforehand. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use these as a bit of a reference. I can also recommend you to, if you're on the computer at the moment, you can pick up, just search for a few images. You can look for things like people walking and stuff like that. And you can use that to help you draw in some figures. I'm thinking having some larger ones here in the foreground is really going to help to draw the viewer in, because then we're going to have maybe some smaller ones that are sitting here in the background as well. But the distance isn't going to be too far at the end of the day. We're also going to put in maybe a lamp over on this side that I'd like. So let's just go in and give this a little try. But then, I'll always bring up, if I go to images and just have a look at some references, just have a look and see if you've got some people, references of people walking, just having a look on the internet. But it's not necessary. If you don't have that, just have a bit of a play around and change things up. So I'm going to put in this person first here on the right. Now, what I want to do is just get the head in round about the horizon line. So I'd put it in just around about here. Okay, larger sort of figure. Okay, like this. So that's just the head of the figure. A little line here to indicate where the head is facing. Okay, eye here and eye here maybe. Okay, something like that. And let's have a look. We've got a shoulder coming out the back here like this. And then maybe the little sleeve of the shirt like that. There. Then we're gonna just bring down this part of the shirt, that there. Maybe get a couple of arms in. So top part of the arm there, and then we're gonna get in a bit of a forearm here, like that. And I'll just put in a little circle sort of thing here at the end for the hand. I'm really gonna try to get a huge amount of detail and just keep this pretty sort of sketchy. And then here we've got another arm, and then the forearm maybe coming up like this. He's maybe holding on to something. But having a look, kind of having a look at a phone or something here. And then we've got further down, just extend out this shirt around about here. Okay, so it kind of finishes off there. Shirt, yeah. And just be standing kind of stationary. So we'll get the shorts in, just a bit of detail here, and maybe one of these little bags, that tourists carry around, put their passports and things in there, without being pickpocketed. I did a bit of a trip around Europe back in 2019, and funny, well, I don't know how funny a story it is, but I was walking around France, and yeah, I realized after a while that my bag had just been hanging open because someone had stopped me on the street, and But luckily nothing had been taken. Only had like a bag of chips, some oranges and things like that in there. Now the ears, I'm going to put in some big ears here. Big ears and maybe some hair. Okay, something like this. A very simple sort of now we'll get in the shorts, just some shorts like this. Yeah. Yeah, oops. We're gonna get in the legs. So we're getting one coming out here like this. Yeah. That. And then getting further down the ankle here, it sort of comes out a little bit. And then we've got the foot like this. And then we're gonna get the other foot, sorry, the other calf. Sort of has a rounded shape at the back like that. This part here is gonna be a little bit more straighter like this. The ankle again here. And then the foot, this. Okay. I know some of you have asked how to draw more detailed figures. I'm not honestly the best at drawing super detailed figures. If I have some time and I can sit down and really concentrate, can definitely get some more detailed figures in, but I don't, it's often, I don't often put too much time into that itself. But that's a pretty general sort of figure there. And because we're drawing a figure in the foreground, we've got to make that figure larger and we've got to make that figure a little bit more detailed as well. So if I just drew something that was just scratched in really quickly, um, again, it would still be okay, but you want to make the level of detail almost decreasing slightly as you go into the background. Yeah, that's one of the techniques that you can use to imply extra depth in your drawing. And also with the pen nib that I'm using a thicker pen nib, 0.5 here for the foreground stuff. You can even use a like a 0.8 or more. Some people have like a 0.1 0.1 nib as well. That works really well for stuff in the foreground. It just pushes this figure closer to the front. Okay. Notice with the lines that I'm drawing as well, they're kind of broken and they're very sort of sketchy looking lines. That's okay. Now what I'll do, I think I might put in a lantern or like a lamp or something around here on the left. And I'm drawing everything in the foreground first, and then we'll put in everything else in the background. I think that's going to be the best way to do things, because then we can get these overlapping shapes and things like that. So let's get a lamp or something coming in here. I think we'll put it, I reckon we'll put it here to the right of this person, kind of in the background. Let's see. It won't be perfect in terms of the I'm just trying to make this up a bit. A bit of that, kind of like something ground there. Almost like a hexagonal sort of shape, prism, or I don't know what you call it, but something here on the ground like that in the distance. And what we'll do, we'll just start putting on another little shape like this on top there. Yep. That. Okay. That can be like the base of one of these lamps. Okay. Curves up a bit like this, there. And essentially, I'm just going to start drawing upwards like this. Try to keep this pretty straight as well. Okay, because it's I always have to sort of check that I'm not drawing on an angle. But if it does come off on an angle, sometimes little imperfections like that can really give drawing a bit more character rather than trying to get everything too perfect. There's a certain amount of detail and clarity, and after that it's just diminishing returns. I mean, you could spend another hour adding in a few more details here and there, you know, 2 hours later, it's still going to look pretty good either way. So that's what I'm trying to do here. At the top of the lamp, I think we'll put in a lamp around about here. We don't want to get it up too high because don't get it up too high, because when you put stuff that's kind of coming out of the paper, it can just sort of interrupt the flow of the composition a bit. So drawn these lamps about a million times because one of the first sort of videos that I made was yeah, just these Venice sketches, and I really love to sketch and draw Venice because it's just such a beautiful city, and there's so much going on. There's people, you've got all these interesting lamps, you've got buildings, you've got water. Um, so it's really an ideal sort of reference, in my opinion, to do urban sort of scenes, to learn how to do more complex buildings. You know, if you look at the Doge's palace, I mean, it's incredible. And those of you who you know, read up a little bit about art history, there's Cannelloni. What's his name? Canaletto. I think one of them's a cheese. This is embarrassing, but he does amazingly detailed scenes of Venice. I remember seeing a few of his pieces when I was at the British art gallery years ago, and my God, just incredible. So, a lot of inspiration to be drawn here. Take your time doing these lamps, call them, because again, stuff in the foreground, we just want to dedicate a bit of extra time to them. Um, it's really just finding that balance to having enough detail, but again, not sort of fiddle around too much, and worry about 100% with it looking exactly as the reference. So um, usually these lamps have these little ornamental things coming off them as well. These little I don't know what they are. They almost look like branches or something like that. It's just so intricate, little detailing on here. And all you can do is just imply that for this sort of scene. Okay, so it, you look at something like this in reality, you look closely at it. It's just amazing, the metalwork and the craftsmanship involved. Incredible. So these three lamps here, might put this one up actually a little bit higher. It's a bit too similar. So this, here we go. I've made a little mistake already. I've placed the lamp a little bit lower because I want it to needs to be sort of in different positions, but we'll make it. It's going to be design these. So there we go. That should do it. Okay. Main thing is that we've got it roughly in the right place. When I say right place, I mean somewhere in the foreground, here to the left. You don't even have to put it here. You can put it here to the right. What I wouldn't suggest is to put the lamp right in the middle, because it's just going to be too obvious. The eye's just going to smack bang in the middle, look straight in here. Try to like even things out a little bit. Okay, so we've got that lamp. Okay, a way that you can darken areas of the drawing really subtly is just create these little lines like this. This is called hatching, drawing lines in one direction, running down the stem of the lamp like that. And what that's going to do is that it's just going to darken that a little bit. Okay, we come down, and then later when I go in with the watercolors, we're going to just make it a bit more little bit more darker as we need to. Okay, I haven't quite decided on the light source, but I think I'm tempted just to get a light source coming in, maybe from the right hand side and casting a shadow towards the this way to the left, front left, like that. Another option, we can get a light source to the right, casting a shadow, so that we've got a longer shadow for this stem. We'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. But having this this lamping works quite well, I think. This one looks a little bit wonky. Yeah, let's fix that up a little. Let's have a look. And guys, if you have any questions, just add them in the chat. And feel free to just use the chat to get to know each other and talk as well. I think we're all very lucky to have a group of um, like-minded and people who are just interested in drawing and learning how to paint these sort of scenes. So it's always good. I draw a lot of inspiration from other artists, other people, following their work, and just appreciating what they do. So yeah, it's great. So there we go. We got that lampion. Now I want to just get in some more figures and things like that. So I'll put in this sort of figure of this sort of older person. Could be anyone really, an old person, but just someone like pushing a trolley or something like that. You know those what do you call them? Yeah, those just little trolleys. I have one as well when I go to the shops. The wheel fell off mine though the other day. Got a new one. Um, and so we go to the head, and I draw a little line sort of segmenting the face in half. What it does is that it sort of helps you angle where the person is looking, and so sort of making it look like the person is looking downwards. So I'm just drawing a little oval shape, or a circle with a triangle at the bottom for the chin, joining them up together, and just drawing a line segmenting that in half. That's a head. Okay, and we can do things like put in a little bit of detail for the like a hat or like a bun, something like that here. I think it could be anything, could be a beanie, could be a bun, something like that. The face. Okay, then we're in a couple of eyes here, just real basic that. Shoulder, the shoulder here, and we'll just go in and get in a bit of detail here. Like that. Get in the forearm coming. This one's going to be a little bit more. We go again the arms, and one thing I found is like getting in the arms first before you start drawing in the segments of the body and the torso. It just looks better because then you don't have lines that just sort of interrupt. You don't have to cut over lines. Afterwards, it's something I've learned myself is just a bit more efficient in terms of drawing. And then you go, your hands this way, like that, holding on to a little pusher thing there. You go. Make sure that this thing is the right sort of height as well. So we want it to touch the ground, so we know it ends around about here. Okay, ends around about here. So bring this all the way down. Just to think of it as a rectangle. Drawing a little rectangle here. And it's going to outline here on the side, get a bit of that three-dimensional look in, and maybe a couple of wheels. One here, maybe here. Okay. Wheels. Okay. Probably drawing in a few lines like that there. Get in maybe the back of her, so something there that she leg here, just the what do you call it, the thigh, and a bit of the calf like that, ankle, and the foot, that, the other foot behind there. Okay, I'm just going to do a teeny bit of shading like that. Muddled up that foot here a little bit, but it looks okay. It looks okay, right? So there we go. Bit of detail again, just reinforce the top of her head. She's wearing a, I don't know, it wouldn't be a beanie because it's too hot to wear a beanie. this scene. So it's definitely got a, I'm just going to tell you guys that it's part of her hair. um, maybe a little bit more detail on the clothing. Separate this out so that there's like a kind of detail going down there like that. Okay, great. Another wheel there. Tricky. It's almost facing, look like it's facing the other way because it looks like she's holding it backwards. Holding the stroller backwards. Had a long day. So a couple of larger figures there, excellent. We're going to look at what else we want to put in. So now that we have a bit more of an indication, a bit more confident as to these figures being in there, I can just strengthen these lines a little. Now, one of the members of our group, the Watercolor Beginners group, I think it's a Watercolor Mentor community group, actually sent in one of her photos of her in Venice, like of a holiday, and oh, she doesn't mind, but I'll just use that to get in some reference of these some figures here sitting on the edge of the water. So what we'll do now, start here because I think we'll need one here. Now remember that the figures here that are sitting on this edge of the water, they're going to be shorter because obviously they're sitting down. So you don't want to put their heads all the way up here in the horizon line. Otherwise, this would be an enormous person. Enormous person who even when seated, head sort of reaches around the same height. So we want to make that, I'd say, around about halfway, around about here. Okay, so we can put in a head like that. The sizes of these heads and things like that, you will get as naturally as time goes by, and you get a bit more confident at understanding perspective and just how to size people, objects, and things like that. As you keep sort of looking at your work, you'll find that looks good, or that looks a bit funny. Why does that look a bit funny? Okay, maybe the head's funny bit big, or maybe they're too small. Maybe for another example is sometimes people draw the heads in and the figure's just too small. I mean, you might add the head in over here, and that could be a child or something here. But if you're doing a person, you want to make that head a bit bigger, and around about halfway the distance from the horizon line to the to where they're sitting on over here. So there we go. Just this is just the figure facing towards the back. Another thing I like to do as well, if you got time to sort of practice this, you can get a few figures in. You've got 3 people here that's sitting down. This person could be, we'll try this person. We'll get this person wearing a hat. That just some kind of hat. This person could be also wearing a hat. This person here, just hair. Oops. That. Oops. That, for example, and then we got the shoulders, and then we got the shoulders of these 2 figures here to the right hand side. Oh, this head a bit too big, but we'll make do. And the shoulder of this person like this, like that. Go. Now they're sitting that. This person could have a bag here, sort of curving around the body. That in the center, and then the rest of these 2 figures here, just with the backs facing this. Okay, and there we go. We got a few figures just seated here, and I might just add a little to the back of the collar of the shirt, like this. But you're not going to really be able to see the faces because they're facing, they're facing directly forward. I'm already looking out like that. So joining them on like that. So we've got a bit of interest here now. We've got bigger figures in the background. We've got a couple of smaller ones here in the distance. We're just going to look for ways that we can sort of add a little bit more detail, a bit more interest in there. I think what I'll do is that I'll add another person, maybe walking across the scene. Where we put him, because we've got 1, 2 figures here. If I put one here, it's just going to look too it's just going to be look too organized. See, they're all standing in the same area, right? If I put 1, 2, 3. So another thing you can, for the composition, you can put another figure here, a little bit closer, so it just looks a bit off. Then we can save this for something else. Put a big boat here or something like that. That's what I'll do. So I'll get in a person, maybe a person just sort of walking in this direction, a bit more hurried than these other two. Again, the head, we're going to put the head so that it's slanted slightly downwards like that, and walking across like this. Oops. Put his hand out the back here. He's got the phone or something like that, and the collar of the shirt. And we've got, he's got a bag. Look at the bag in here. Carrying some sort of bag. Bit of detail for that bag. Lap or something like that there. Here we've got a shoulder. The back of his shoulder there. Maybe he's got some glasses on like that. Something simple. Put in an ear. Really little indication of an ear there. The hair as well. Let's get in tiny bit of hair, not a huge amount of detail, just a little bit of hair. Same thing with this one actually. Just strengthen a bit of that, some parts of it. As you become more confident with the lines, you can go ahead and strengthen it. But I sort of just go in at first and try to just keep things a bit rough. So then there's leeway if you end up placing a line in the wrong place or here and there, you can correct it with a lot more, just a little more easily than if you go straight in and make that very dark. Okay. Notice also, I also recommend making some of these figures in the background a little bit lighter and a little bit less detailed as well. So let's get in the side of this person's shirt and maybe like an arm or something here. Just running backwards there. It's got maybe his hand in his pocket or something like that. But the shirt finishes around about here. Let's have a look. Yeah, he's on the phone. Maybe he's on the phone, standing that kind of direction. Maybe that could be his sleeve or something. Bit of shading in there. And then we're going to just get in a little detail for the legs. So this leg here, it's going to come out, around about here, where the hand is, like that. And we're going to get the thigh and the hamstring like that. Then we're going to get in the leg, kind of coming out a bit of an angle like this. Let's have a look like this. Let's try the other leg. There, forwards like this, more forwards, and then get in just a part of his other leg there, like that. And we'll get in a shoe. Okay, just think of it, it's almost like a triangle. That, oh, it's too big. This shoe's too big. It's got clown shoes on. Like that. And then we have another one that's the shoe. Think of it as kind of like triangle. If you simplify it down to triangle, like that. Pointing. Triangle kind of pointing downwards for this one and pointing straight across. So there we go. And I'm quite happy with these figures. They're looking all right. So, from now on, really all we need to do is just start playing around a bit more with some of these figures, maybe some more that are sitting here on this area like that, just having a bit of eating some ice cream or just doing something. Yeah, I'll put in another one, this, and maybe like a bag, something here that's here that they're sitting with. That. Yeah, figures like that. Fills the space a little bit as well. Like that. You don't have to, you don't have to fill up all these spaces because remember, we've still got to get in a few boats in here. So I wanna try to
I tend to go a bit overboard with these figures earlier on. We'll see how we go. And maybe the arm of this person sort of reaching behind like that, sort of just leaning towards the back. I think that should be fine for the indication of some of these figures. We're all good. Now, let's try getting in some of the other parts of the reference. I'm just going to go have a look at the chats. How's everyone doing? I've got a few here. Having a look. Sandy. Oh, no, I think I've read yours out already, Sandy. Judy Rice from Arizona. Hi, Judy. Lewis from Brazil. Amazing. We've got so many people from around the world. And Wendy from New York. Um, Helena Falek from Perth, Western Australia. I think, and I'm from Perth actually. I moved to Melbourne about 2015. So great to hear from someone from Perth again. And Angeline, beautiful sketching. Thank you, Angeline. Hope you're finding this useful. Mara Gulans, loosening up, went back to 3. Mara, I think Mara, you mentioned something in the discussions. You might have asked a question in discussion. I just remember your name. I can't remember exactly what you said. You might have asked about geez, you might have asked about materials or something like that. But yeah, if you have questions about the materials and stuff that I'm using, just let me know. Loosening up, went back to 3. Excellent. Ellen Whitney from Maui, Hawaii. Wow, awesome. Yeah, Hawaii is one of those places I really want to visit one day. Just looks like a chill place, great holiday destination. Rose Clark from Kyneton, Victoria. How you going? How you going, Rose? You guys, I'm not sure if you guys are still in lockdown. I hope not. I hope you're doing okay and enjoying yourself today. Lynette Fuller Fisher, Lynn from Lemon Tree Passage, New South Wales. Awesome. He's definitely getting a lot more Aussies in these streams and creating a bit of competition now, which mostly I've noticed, initially a lot of viewers from the States. So yeah, really good to see just more people getting on board and learning. Lynette, drawing figures is scaring me to death. Yeah, look, it's tough, but figures add just a sense of life to a scene. Like if we were just to draw this scene as it is, the reference picture with just the boats and things like that, it looks nice. But I think people just add a feeling of movement, a feeling of something, even when you take a photograph of a scene, it just brings back memories of maybe the people you interacted with, the types of people there, and that forms part of this whole, I guess, the story that you want to tell. So I always like to include people in there, for that sort of reason. Okay, now let's have a look what else we've got. For some reason, my reference picture just keeps closing on my computer. I don't know what's going on. Hoping for more boats. Excellent. And guys, continue on and make sure, if at this stage you're thinking it's not looking like anything, or I don't know, just make sure you go through it and try your best to finish it off. Finish off the drawing, finish off the painting, and then at the end call it whether it's worked or not. That's the best way, because a lot of the time it's just a work in progress, and you've just got to take things as they come and see if it sort of fits together as a whole. So we'll start. Let's add in a boat here. Now some of you are asking about the boats. We can start here, like a boat here in the center, like this. Okay. Now this is the edge, the top of the gondolas. They have these little sort of triangular things that's popped down in this way. Bottom of the boat we might put around about here. Okay. bit of color here for the bottom. Then we'll draw a line down like that. Okay, I'm gonna get this section coming out, and a bit of the front of the boat gondola coming out like that. Okay, and join this up here at the back there. Okay, that bit of stuff coming off the gondola, some bits and pieces like that. How does that look? Okay. Okay. I do want to get a few more in though on different angles. So this one's sort of just facing directly, you're looking straight onto it. So it's gonna appear like this. But as we move to the side, you'll be able to see more of the boat. And and another thing you can do is just get in some shapes. For example, here I can just indicate a gondola here that's out of view like that. Okay, just going behind that lady. I also want to get in a larger one here. So let's go ahead and you know what I've done? I've accidentally made it a little bit too small. This gondola. It should be further, actually a little bit further up on the horizon line. So let me try it. Let's see if I can fix this up a little bit. Let's move it a little bit more. This and maybe that. It's just taller than what it is actually, but no big deal. Just continue on. That's why it's so important to always keep track of that horizon line, and every time you draw something in, make sure that in reference to that horizon line, it's making sense. Otherwise, this is what happens. I just wasn't concentrating for a moment. So there we go. It's a little bit higher. It doesn't really look a huge amount like on the one I did before, but we will make do. We might be able to fix it up a little bit later. So we'll draw another boat in here like that, sort of the bottom of it there. And let's have a look. We have a section, a gondola here that comes up, and this section here that runs towards the back like that. Yeah, it's another one. Yeah. Yeah, just maybe got another one here. Side. That. There.
Sweet. Sweet. I have no space for the boats. Yeah, look, just if it's struggling with the figures, which we have put in quite a few in here, just cut through and indicate that there's some boats in there. If you get one or two, get a couple in there, you're going to be all good. Okay, best. This one. Let's have a look. We might have this one just coming up to the edge like this. There. Yep. That's the inner section of it. I'm gonna come in there like that. Bit of stuff, pieces inside the gondola. Yeah. That. They have these. The gondolas just have this sort of specific shape to it, like that. I think I've done these gondolas all too well, but continue on. So there are these little poles that are sticking out of the water like this, which I like to put in around about this stage as well. They actually go a little bit higher up to past the horizon line around about here. So in the reference, I'm just going to go ahead and create a bit more height to those. And some of them you'll notice they'll cut through the boats, and because they're in the front. These two here, they're in the front, and then you've got some at the back. That creates a little bit of
depth. Well, you know, you get some of them also cutting behind the figures and things like that. I'm just trying to make them a bit lighter as the ones that go behind the figures so that they don't interrupt too much with what's going on. What I really want to do is just get in a few more boats and gondolas in here that just look a bit more like gondolas. Unfortunately, I just haven't gotten a solid ones yet, so let me just try the one in like that. Yep. There we go. That's one. That looks all right. There. Okay. A lot of overlapping shapes in here. Could be one as well, just coming behind that figure. Not overdo it though. And that's the importance of having like these thicker lines here in the foreground. It's going to pull this figure forward a little bit. Same even with this lamp over here. So we've even got an indication of the edge of the gondola, something like that there. It's not going to interrupt. Okay, I'm going to keep going and fix this one. This one looks a bit funny. I'll go back into it later. I think another one coming over to the side here would also be pretty nice. Let's get in a little indication of one like that. There we go. That's one. You know, you can even put another one here, maybe cutting in front like that. So we've got two there. Fantastic. Okay, so this one's kind of a bit closer. Well, and now you sort of see sort of coming up a little bit more near to the horizon line, which is increasing looking like they're a bit larger, which is good. I have to keep opening and closing this reference picture. For some reason, it just keeps shutting on me. So go ahead and keep playing around. There's even a larger boat here that sort of cuts through the back, and it comes through like this. And there, it disappears off the side like that. An interesting thing there's some kind of building here, which I might put in. I don't know what it is. It'd be like a booth or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I'll just put it in like that. Window there. Yeah. This gondola also has a section of it pops out that off the back. Yeah. Right. Maybe thinking, what could we get in on this side? We can almost just leave it like that. But there's another thing that we could potentially put in. We could put in like a bridge or something like that coming in. Like I think maybe like coming in around here. Let's see. That runs through. I can get another figure sitting here as well, just to interrupt the pattern of that bridge a little bit. So just the head of the figure, the body, something like that. And I'm just going to draw a few sort of lines going downwards like this. Have a look. Lines going out like that. We're going to get some vertical lines running down this. Okay. Not too much detail, just a little indication of what's smaller into distance. Oops, this. Okay, there we go. So we got a bit of a bridge or something here, maybe just leading out to the edge. About maybe like another lamp or something here, sticking off the bridge. Let's get it. Kind of lamp here. That Similar to that shape, but just more simple, like that. Go. That's just a something, little something here. Patch away at the stem. Okay. The same thing goes with some of these little wooden poles that are in the ground. You can just sort of hatch away or slightly just color them in a little bit with the pen. But again, you can do this afterwards. You don't have to do this all now. You can go in with the watercolor, that extra detail in later on. Not essential to do all this stuff, but I like to just put in a few bits of darkness here and there in areas. Great. I think this is looking okay at the moment. I'm just going to reinforce this line here where the figures are sitting, and we've got the foreground. And I'm going to just get in a little line running here. There's actually a tiny little lighter sort of section just near the edge of where this walkway finishes. Okay. Tiny little edge there. That would be nice to sort of add in. Now, what I want to do, let's have a look. Some little directional lines. You need to be very careful with this. Just a bit of experimenting to see. So, line just running above here, cutting through. Okay. Now, imagining point here. If we put our finger here and then hold the pen and just do this, you're able to get in some directional lines running through. Normally how I'm using the so you can sort of do that, do it first with your finger. See, that one's a bit off. That one should be more on this sort of angle, but it doesn't matter. That, there. Now we're going to draw another line here, that. Maybe another one coming out here, there. Okay. And again, emanating from that point, the horizon, the vanishing point, just a 1 point perspective, basic 1 point perspective there. Again, lay that pen down like that to that same point. Again, draw that line there. Lightly at first. Okay. Might be able to get in another one just down here like that. And that now adds a teeny bit more dimensionality to the drawing. Okay. And you can do things like just basically add in, like if we look at the reference, we've got a bit more detail in the floor. There's actually like bricks and things, like these larger, not bricks, I think they're actually made of marble, something like that. Yeah, we might have one here, one here, one here. We might have one here, running across, one here, that, here. Oops, that one's not so perfect, but we can make do. One here, we definitely need something coming across here. Oops, that's wrong angle, kind of straight like this. Yeah. This, one more here. Okay, there we got it. We've got these slabs of marble here on the ground. I think that looks okay. Last bit, we're going to get in the buildings. And why are we doing the buildings last? Well, because it's right at the back. And we've got all this detail here. We've got all these poles and stuff sticking out. So it makes sense that we get these first in and then start putting in the buildings at the back and allow us to sort of cut around things. But with that said, yeah, later on, I still look at the overall composition and think, you know, are these holes and things looking okay? Do I need to add a few more here and there? You can always go over the top, no big deal. So We'll do this really quickly. It's hard to see in the reference picture. It's very, very there's a lot of detail really in the background. The main buildings you want to focus on is the ones like in the middle, but I'm going to shift it. I think I might shift it a little to the right, slightly to the right there. The buildings are right smack bang in the middle. Shift it a little bit to the right, okay, to create a bit of balance. Because we've got this larger shape here, and then we've got the tower here in the background. If I put it right there, I just think it's going to look a bit funny. Here, I'll kind of at least balance out. I hope so. So the top of the tower and sort of around here, and we've got more buildings here. So I think that's what I'll change up. And then for this stuff, we can manage to kind of make it up. We'll try where I want the tower to begin. Maybe start like here. And nothing you can do with the pen. Get the 0.5 swap down to the 0.3, just to get in a little bit more of a lighter line. That's a detail like that. Yeah. So this is the now if we look at the tower, which I'm putting the tower in right here. All I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get in this massive buildings beneath the tower and to the right of the tower. And there's also a massive buildings to the, kind of to the right where there's like a dome here as well. What you can do is simplify this down to almost like a large rectangular shape. Okay. So I'm going to start just on this. We'll put in the basic details of the tower first. So we're about here. And another thing I might do is also enlarge the tower a tiny bit, because I just feel like enlarging it, but it's really not this big in the reference photos. So this is something that you can do. And we're going to break this down. The tower's just got this section. I'm drawing it all the way up to where there are this sort of cream white colored bit there. And these little windows here, these little dark areas like that, okay? And what is going on? My reference picture just keeps closing on me. It's a bit annoying, but we'll assist that there. And we got a side of it. The side of the tower is kind of sticking out like that. So it looks like a block, basically a kind of block that's sticking up. Okay. Bits and pieces here. We've got section underneath there, like that. Bring that over there. And the top of it, it's just this, what is it? Sort of triangle. It's on top like that. There. Triangle. Okay. Got it. Just a real indication. I think there's little ornamental things on here as well, which I'm not going to focus on all too much. Sticking out there. Oops. Bring that down, and then the rooftops. These little rooftops of the buildings. It's hard to see in this reference photo, but I'm just going to make sure I've got some more geometric sort of shapes going on here. Go. Do this building, something like that. We've also got this larger building running towards the back. Yeah. Bit of the rooftop like that. Rectangular sort of shape. Another one overlapping to the right hand side. This. Another one continually overlapping again. Let me just have a look. Sort of making sure I'm in the right sort of place. That one's a bit longer, kind of coming out like this. I've just enlarged these buildings a bit more in the background. I want to emphasize them more. I want to make them pop out a bit. The dome, it's just a semicircle. Just draw a semicircle like that. Yeah. And it comes down, joins on like this. There we have it. Dome. Well, there's a little bit on top here as well, which we draw in. This. it's a dome. And there's a couple of little towers here that, again, I'm just going to have a play around and draw in this. That's one there. And this actually should be a little bit taller, guys. That's okay. We'll make do. Another one maybe here. Taller this time. Carry this down like this. Okay. Go. Should be higher section of the tops. It's almost like a slightly zoomed in view. And I'm gonna get in this side. I think this used to be a monastery. Probably Gregorio, you might know a little bit more about the history. But from I think what I read before was it used to be a monastery. Such a beautiful view. It was one of my dreams to go over there and just to do a bit of sketching, see some of the artwork, see a lot of the masters, oils and watercolors that been over and drawn a lot of inspiration from Venice. It's just a very aesthetically pleasing sort of view of buildings, and I'm just so obsessed with buildings as well. There are little windows and things here, but I'm just going to indicate them like that. And remember, the horizon line is roughly here. Okay, these buildings, I said before, I'm exaggerating them. And this is a decision that you got to make. Some people may say it's not, it's not accurate. It's not as, it's not to life or to the faithful to the reference. I think references for me are just a way to inspire. I want to change it into something that's original to what what I want to portray. And like I said, I really like the buildings, so I'm going to enlarge them, even though, not as per the reference. You can do this and get away with it as long as you don't. If I made this tower enormous, if I made it sticking out of the page, coming out the page, that's going to look weird. Enlarge it a little bit, it looks okay. So as long as you follow the general rules of perspective, you can get away with things like that. Change it up to what you want. Building running off the side there. Draw a few little thingos. This is really hard to see what's going on with some of these buildings. I know this one kind of ends around about here, and that's the rooftop. So a large sort of rooftop there. Comes about the side there. We got windows, all these little windows just running through like that. Just scribble in a circle. Scribble in a circle. Yeah. Patricia, comment from Patricia. It's called artistic license. Yes. It's good. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, even people that take photographs, you find I've got a couple of friends who are really into photography. I've tried to get into it. Just haven't put too much effort into it, but they change so many things about the photo. They'll even enlarge things. They'll lighten things here. They'll take a few different shots of the same location, and then they'll join them all together to have multiple elements. Someone walking here in a dark sky with the lights. So they'll do the same things that we do as artists on the computer. So there's no right and wrong in that sense. It's just what you want to portray. You might want to create a really warped sort of view where the figures are, enormous, and maybe the horizon line is further down. So you're kind of like looking up like an ant on all these large people walking by and these enormous buildings. It's really really how you want to portray the scene. It's kind of I think of it almost like filmmaking, where they change the views. What we're creating something that wasn't there. We're trying to put all these elements together to create that image in my mind. I'm trying to, I sometimes just try to remember the smells, the location, the things that I see that I like, and combine them all together because you can never get that perfect shot, even when you're taking a photo. Photographers can spend years trying to get a perfect shot of like you know, like a bird or something like that, and they never be able to get that. But for us, we can use that photo, we can change things up, and we can create something ourselves from that. We can create structure and beauty that I just think it's amazing that you can do something like that. So anyway, those buildings are pretty much done. We're almost finished with the drawing. The only thing I'll do is just probably add in a few more bits and pieces here over to the left hand side, because we've essentially got more buildings and things running over here. And we've got also this, like, it's kind of like trees and things, shrubs, so we can just rough a bit of that in. And we've got a larger, sort of longer building here. I think, rounding around here. Uh, and around about here. Okay, so we've shifted everything to the right, so there'll be a bit more space. It's that top part of that rooftop there, and I'll just make this up. I don't know really what's in this section, but I'm ending it off like that, there, and have a more pointed section of that rooftop there. Triangular edge. And another thing, we've got these shrubs and bushes and that kind of thing, just trees just popping out behind these buildings. So I'm just going to draw in, they're just circles, just little circles. The more imperfect they are, the better as well. Okay. Another thing is that we've also got little boats here in the background, and this helps. Putting in little boats helps to increase the sense of depth. So we just look at that, just little indications of boats. Put them all in the same place, but have one here, have one here. Just trying to see what else is in there. A lot of them look kind of like fishing boats and stuff running towards the back. I don't want to overdo it as well, but stuff like that. And there. Great. And let's have a look. I think that's pretty much done, guys. Happy with how that drawing looks, and we can get in again a few more details as we go. And also, you can go ahead and draw in more details with the pen when you finish the actual painting. Don't think you just got to stick with what's in there. Once you finish, you can actually indicate a bit more in there. That's actually if you feel like some of the watercolors has gone over it and it's just obscured sections, or you want to add more detail, do it after as well. People always ask, do you do the drawing first or you do the watercolors first? You can do both. But I find with more kind of sketches like this, which have a bit more detail, I do find that doing the drawing first helps a lot more, because otherwise you're just going in with the imagine if you're painting the watercolor of this first with nothing on the page, it just wouldn't work. I'm sure it would work for some people who'd be extremely talented to sort of hold that image in your mind, but for most of us, we need to draw. We need to draw first to know where we're going to put in our pencil, our painting, everything like that. Okay, just checking the comments again. Fantastic. Yvette, starting to look nice already. Thanks, Yvette. Appreciate it. It's, I'm happy with those buildings. Some of the figures look a bit sloppy, but Yvette. Chanel, and man, now I'm going to have to redo my whole picture. Hey, look, if you're gonna redo it later, that's fine. I mean, the important thing is that you get the practice in little by little. If you keep on doing something that you enjoy and you love, you'll slowly improve, and you won't be able to see the effects of that until many years later. Who knows? It's not a linear kind of process. Um, there were things like tone, which I'm still trying to get my head around certain aspects, just the subtleties of it, that it took me 2 years to understand just how to look at a photograph and um, pick apart the tones and simplify the whole photograph down as like 3 tones. So please continue on, and I think it's the process of doing it and learning. You'll get better in time. I'm more confident. Take things at your own pace as well. I know some people say sometimes I go a bit too quick, uh, and I'm taking things at a pace that I'm comfortable with. But always, if you need more time, watch the video later and have a look at it and see if you can change something up. Okay. And here I'm just redoing some of the legs and putting in a little bit more detail for the legs, feet and stuff like that. Well, so that I can draw these figures out bit more from the background. I'm using a liner that's a bit too thin there. Probably a thicker one like this is going to be helpful. Shoulder outlines of their head, that kind of thing like this. That's ready. Starting to bring this figure closer to the front. I don't want to do this to all sections of it, just bits and pieces. Otherwise, it's going to look too. It will pop out of the photo and it won't look. It joins on with everything else. You want to have a sense of harmony. Excellent. Okay. I think that will pretty much do it for the drawing. Okay. So I'm going to go straight into the painting. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to drop those questions in the comments and I'll get back to you. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to go grab my brushes and we'll get started. These are the brushes I'm using. Well, I'm only going to be using a few of these. I think we'll start with the round brushes. A couple of these round brushes. I've got a number 8 and number 10 round brush here. I've got a 3/4 inch flat brush. I've got a few other flat brushes, a couple of smaller ones here. I'll talk about these as we go. Another round brush, but basically we're just going to be using round brushes and flat brushes. Maybe a mop brush for the sky or something like that. So let's go in. I'll start actually with the mop brush because I want to get in the yellows. Now, one of my biggest tips for you guys is to start with the buildings and start with the ground first. I always end up accidentally mixing green. If you start with blue, it's so easy to get when you start picking up the yellow for things to just turn into green. What we'll grab is a little bit of yellow ochre. Sorry, not yellow ochre, a bit of Naples yellow. Naples yellow, like I mentioned in my previous videos, it's basically a combination of 𝗪𝗙𝗪𝗔𝗟 yellow mixed with a bit of white gouache. You can create a very similar color. So it's a creamy yellow color. Okay, look at that. Something like this. I want to get in that color right there. So, I'm trying to bring up that reference picture again. It keeps closing on me. Okay, so let's get in some of that color there, and I'm going to cut around the figures as well because I just want to get in a few different colors in here. So just the ground, we're just painting the ground. Look at that, just a stroke color running through like that. Okay. Okay, there. Keep things pretty light. Now the mix is about 1/4 to 1/3 pigment, to 3/4 water. 2/3 to 3/4 water. And the ground. What I want to do is add in a bit of neutral tint. And Mara's asking, if we don't have that yellow, what do you suggest we mix? So a bit of yellow ochre, a bit of 𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗢𝗡 yellow. So if you've got a bright yellow and you've got a bit of white gouache, you can mix those together to get a creamy sort of color. Okay. If not, just try to use a more dull yellow, maybe like a yellow ochre. If you don't have that, just use any kind of yellow. It's not a huge deal. I'm just trying to replicate that color on the ground for those that area of the ground where we've got these bits of yellowish colored marble. And to this, I'm dropping in here a little bit of darker color. So it's just a bit of just a bit of burnt sienna in there, darken it in some areas. Here in the foreground as well, we want to just darken a little bit here. Okay, just a tiny bit of darkness running across the front like that. Okay. I'm going to just make sure I'm not going over the figures too much. Look at that. Just move your whole arm, get a little stroke of that in like that. And that, bring the foreground forward a bit more. So, how else to put it. And what we can do, same thing for these buildings in the back. Yellows. Let's start with a bit of that Naples yellow. And I've got a bit of yellow ochre. Okay, that works too. And, if you don't have yellow ochre, go with a bit of 𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗢𝗡 yellow or some brighter yellow. Okay, try to think of colors as more warm and cool, and you'll be fine. You don't have to replicate the colors exactly as they look. In fact, I'm adding a bit more vibrancy, a bit more saturation to these colors myself. Okay, I'm really struggling to get in. Now, when you get in these buildings, just be careful. Just want to wash over the top. This one here, there. This building here, a bit of that. Okay, that. And what I like to do here is maybe just wet the paper a little bit with a spray bottle. Okay, spray. Okay, I'm doing this so that when I get the sky in, we're gonna get a little mixing. I don't want a hard edge on these buildings. I don't want. I want the edges to be defined, but I don't want a very, very hard edge on all this because it's just about making a sense of creating a sense of harmony as well. Okay. Another thing that we want to do, I will also maybe get in a bit of a sunset situation. It's only just come up right then, but because these buildings are now so bright, it makes sense to carry a bit of this down into the water, and then we'll blend that in later with a bit of the blue of the water. Okay, so you just carry this a little bit down like that. You've got some orange. Drop in a bit of that orange as well. I'm going to drop in a bit here into the water. And I just let a lot of the mixing happen on the paper, yeah? Touch and go, touch and go. One thing to keep in mind, just try your best to keep away from those gondolas because we need to get them in a sort of bluish color later, okay? And the good thing now, sort of about putting in a lot of these warm colors, that's now going to contrast with the boats a little bit better. So we're going to have some, call it some complementary colors going on. Okay, so this area is all pretty much wet now. I'm just thinking what else, you can just play around really with this as much as you want. add in some more color here and there. You know, you can even just pick up a few different mixes and just drop in those colors in some areas so that you get some variation. Maybe even a bit of red in there too. I'm not fussed. Okay, like that. I do think maybe the water needs a bit more saturation, a bit more orangey red in some areas, a bit of pink maybe. So I'm just dilute down a bit of my red, drop that in here while I can. While this whole area is wet, this is where you want to do this. The wet and wet effects, magical. Love painting wet into wet. Okay, there we go. Now, sky, we're going to grab some blue. Firstly, what I'm going to do actually is maybe like wet down this area, to be honest, with some of that water. Just wet down another bit more in here because I want to try to get in some clouds. We've got this challenge as well of these lights. I'll have to paint the lights in. Let's try just a little bit of yellow running through there like that. Let's drop that in. Just a bit of warmth. Yeah, that'll do. Okay. Bit of blue. That. Okay. Large brush, large flat brush. Might swap to a smaller one, a number 8 flat brush. This is cerulean blue. Okay. Dropping that in. That. Careful not to go over those buildings all too much. That. Touch and go. Some bits mix. Some bits let the white separate. Yeah. Okay. Touch and go. Yep. There. Some broken edges and some sharp edges combined together. Okay, like that. It's almost too dark here. Let me. The challenge here is just trying to keep that warmth of the building. Okay. More water. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Number 10 round brush. I'm going to swap to the 10 round brush. Second. You know, another thing you can do, we can also mix in some purpley color. Bit of ultramarine mixed with bit of the ultramarine mixed with pyrrole red. Get a bit of this granulation here in the sky, in the edges and the corners. That down. Let's do this while everything's still kind of wet. So I'm going to just quickly get this out the way. Some more blue. Bit of this cerulean blue. Notice here we've got a bit of that yellow running into the sky. So unfortunately, I can't really do all that much about it. We're just going to have to work with it, yeah? Around a bit. As long as we got a little bit of yellow in those lamps, we're going to be fine. I'm going to try to, you know, put in a little bit more blue in there afterwards. Maybe a bit of purple over the top. Whoops, way too dark. Want it around the same level of lightness as the other side. There. A little bit of this, yeah, little yellow sort of mixing in is no big deal. I find when you're using Naples yellow ochre, those dulled down sort of yellows, they tend to be less likely to create these weird greens. Partially colorblind, and at times I can't really see when I've actually mixed a bit of green in there. People used to comment on my paintings when I was first starting out, and they were asking, why is everything green? So I'm pretty sure this is yellow, but you guys let me know. Bit of blue, bit of ultramarine blue, and then we're going to add in a tiny bit of. You can mix different purples up. Just have an experiment and play and get a few different purples. I want to get in a shape here, a bit of a cloud shape, and also perhaps here. Yeah. Another one here. Why am I doing this over this side? Because I want to create more contrast, light and dark, purple and yellow. Look at these lamps, they got this yellow. If we have a bit of purple next to that yellow, it's going to look like beautiful. It's going to have this kind of complementary color effect there. It's all wet into wet, so you know these dark bits are just as important as the lighter sections here. So remember not to make everything the same color, not the same color, the same tone. Got to get in a bit of color here at the bottom where the sky joins on, so I'm just catch up. I'm lucky it's all still wet. You get bits of bleeding over like that. I'm not worried. I'm happy. Just continue on with that. I'm fiddling around too much with there. Now the water here is kind of dried off at the bottom. Just going to spray this a little bit here. Ideally, I wanted to get that water in a bit earlier, but we'll make do. Okay, now I'm going to mirror the sky a little bit. However, notice in Venice the water has got this turquoisey color. You can mix this color up by adding a little bit of Naples yellow to the cerulean blue. It's a little trick that I've found works really well. Just saved me from buying my own little tube of turquoise. Okay, that bit of softness where it blends in to the orange in the background. You don't want to get rid of all that orange. You want to leave some of that in there, yeah? That. Turn around. Turn down like that. A bit more blue. And oops. I mixed up there. Wrong color. Running out of spaces on my palette. Mix things up. Okay. Swinging out very light washes, and you know where we've got the figures, I'm just roughly cutting around them. That. Yeah. Bringing this down. Cutting around the boats a little bit as well. I want to get a more vibrant blue in for the boats. Okay. And as we come down to the foreground, this is where we want to just add in a little bit more darker concentration of this blue. Okay, and I'm just being mindful so to cut around the figures a little bit. That, here, there, here. Oops, well, this is coming. That's it. Right. Great. You know, you might want to pick up a smaller brush, and I'll show you how to get in little waves and things on the surface of the water, little ripples. So I'm going to mix up a bit of neutral tint. You can use any dark color, maybe a bit of brown mixed with a bit of blue. That works pretty well as well. And just drop in little bits like this on the surface of the water. Yep, that will indicate some waves, and the ones in the foreground, the waves will just be a little bit bigger. I don't want to overdo it though, so just use this technique sparingly. Remember that these waves, they all spread out to a little bit more later anyway. Little ones in the background, very, very little ones. That's all you want, just permeating through the warmth there so that there is a little transition. Okay. Okay, so the figures, all this sort of stuff, the figures and everything else in here, we're going to get in with a bit of color. This bridge as well, I want to put in a bit of this raw umber, almost like a chocolatey brown color here. But I'll also mix in some of this purpley color, this bluish color here, and join it down with the few little strokes like that. Okay, so that we're creating a bit of color harmony here. Still brown in there, but we've also got some coolness in here, so that's not going to stick out all too much from everything else. You don't have to color everything in as well, and leave a bit of white in there. Now, what I'm going to do is we'll start putting in a bit of color for these figures. Let's, this one might have like a red top here. Red for this person. Maybe some orange backpack, or a bit of darkness for the backpack, like that. There. We're just trying to get in some colors. Same for these figures here in the foreground. We can add in a bit of yellow. This person might have like a yellow shirt. Turn into green almost in a moment. Just mixes through. Bit of red. Warm color here. Okay. Mix in a bit of darkness through there as well. Just a bit of color. That.
Question from Shanolin. So when doing water, is the water that's in the distance lighter than the water that's closer to the front?
Yes. So you want to make the water a little bit darker at the front, and it just sort of fades to a lighter sort of color. But look, it really depends on the reference photo. On a lot of reference photos, actually, it doesn't show that. But this is a technique in, I guess, aerial, they call it atmospheric painting, or aerial perspective, where things in the distance normally start to become more cool and lighter in color tone. So that's a really good point, Chanel, and I'm trying to just emphasize that a bit more to show you guys what I mean. So a bit more darkness here in the foreground. That will create a bit more depth. It'll create that three-dimensional look in your painting when you do this. Often requires multiple layers, or at least multiple bits of wet in wet to achieve that sort of effect. So we'll go ahead and let's put in a bit of color for the legs of this figure. I'm not really worrying too much about the color I'm using. I just want to get in a little wash over the top. Maybe this lady will have a kind of a bit more, maybe some red, a more vibrant red here. Yeah. Yeah. Down. Too much, we can add in a bit of blue in there. Dull it down a bit and maybe turn it into a purple, but I still want it to have a more of a warm bias. Okay. Trolley, bit of warmth on there. This warmth at the top. Then maybe we'll add in a bit of blue. We move downwards. Okay. Blue in here as well. But mainly just keeping all these washes very light to completely fine. Okay. We just need to get rid of a bit of that white paper. Too stark against everything else. This one here, Let's have a look. Try some yellow for the shirt. That's too much. I'll mix in a bit of this burnt sienna. She looks better. Shorts, maybe they'll fade to a blue color, a purpley sort of color here. Bottom, very light sort of purpley color, or gray really, whatever that is. And then for the arms, of course, I'm going to get in a little bit of color. Just in a bit of red, drop that in. This arm's already kind of blue because bits of the water washes come in there, but a bit more red here. There. Okay. Now, a little bit more for the boats. We'll get in some cobalt blue. I think we'll use cobalt blue for the boats. A light wash of it over the top. Some areas. So I'm just going to just graze over like that. Graze over some sections. Not all of it, just a bit. I want to leave some white in there. That bit of that blue into that boat there as well here, just to show that they're actually there. And these ones, couple here, got in. Forgotten about these figures. Bit of red, bit of yellow, maybe one. Too bright. Dull that down a bit with a bit of darker color. Join this all on that, and we pretty much finished with our first wash. Okay, so I urge you to dry this off with a hairdryer or something like that. Come back and we'll do the second wash. And second wash is just putting in the rest of the colors, essentially, just the shadows. I'm thinking I'm going to get the shadow coming in there, this side. Because, again, with the buildings, I just want to create a bit of light on the buildings too. A bit of, coming from the right, moving to the left. So we'll dry this off, and I'll pause the audio for a second so you don't have to hear the hairdryer. But drop in any questions. If you have any questions, let me know what you think. And if you need any help, I'll get back to you. Okay, all dried off now. And I'm quite happy with how this has turned out. We've got all these lighter tones here. We've got some lighter tones in the background, which is really what we need. And we've got a fair few kind of mid-tones here in this middle part of the painting. There's even some mid-tones here in the sky, in the corners. I'd say maybe it's about 60% of this painting is probably mid-tones, and the other 40 is all the lighter sort of tones. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to put in the remaining midtones and the darker tones. And in fact, most paintings are composed primarily of midtones, depending on the subject that you're painting. So once we get all the shadows in, especially the lighter shadows in the background, bits of the buildings, bits of the shadows of the figures and boats and things like that, we'll pretty much be done. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to be using a number 8 round brush. Let me just have a look. I think this will do the trick. Number 8 round brush. We just need a brush that's got a point. Okay, and what I'll be mixing up here is a bit of purple. I want to use some purple paint because we've got all this yellow here in the background, so a bit of that will, I think, will look nice. Also got some other types of purples. I've got a bit of this moon glow that I've got left over, but you don't need to have that. You just got a blue and then you've got a red. Just mix those together. You'll be able to come up with a nice, vibrant color. Nice, vibrant sort of purple. So that looks, see, even that looks pretty similar to that. So let's have a look. So we're using roughly about 50% pigment to 50% water for this wash. Okay, we're going to go straight into the buildings, then we're going to move into the boats and things. So we'll test here. Remember, the light source is coming from the right-hand side. So we're going to get bits of light on the right side of the buildings, maybe the tops of the buildings as well. So I'm going to make this up. Bit of color there. Let's have a look. Look, right. Go just a bit of color up there, and we're going to go in also to the top of the building, bit there. Okay, bit of that. Drag this all the way down here. Yeah, right. And we're going to remember to leave that section of the building, that right-hand section, yellow. Okay, so we've got a feeling of light, right-hand side of the building. Okay. Cut across like this, and then we're going to join that up here. Bit of darkness here in the building behind that. Leaving the rooftops. The main thing is just leaving some of these rooftops yellow. Going to do the trick. And with the dome, I'm just leaving the right side of that dome just to imply some little bit of light there. Oops, a bit too far up. And cutting around a bit of that going on there. And then we've got this section, which is just these pillars running down like that. Of course, the bottom part here, which connects on to the water. The same here, connect this all up, try to get the shadows all in one go. That just looks a lot better. And remember, you don't have to color in all that yellow. You can leave in you can leave in some of that yellow just peeking through. That, yeah, that's gonna create that sense of I'm gonna dampen also this section here where the buildings hit the water, slightly dampen it a bit because I don't want using some clean water. I don't want too harsh of a line where it finishes, but hopefully I don't want to get of the warmth in some areas of the water. Just be careful with that. Bit of shadow underneath the top of that building there. Yeah. Great. Used up all my purple. I'll darken this one here in the foreground, a bit of color there. Color there for that building. There. Okay. and then also because this one's in the foreground, this building, so it's going to be darker. Bit of shadow underneath the building here to the left, and we should pretty much be done with these background shadows once we've got that all through. That one I haven't done all too. Something like that. Leave that roof. Be careful here. That roof. Through the middle sections, we've got some trees, and you've got some choices here. You can pop in green for the trees, or you can just, well, just use a purple or a dull down color as well. Okay, it doesn't matter. The tone is more important. So I reckon I'll pick up a bit of green. Let's try maybe like a dull down green with a bit of brown mixed into it. Green and brown mixed together. Okay, let's drop that in. Yeah. Sap green as well. Yeah. There. Yeah. Great thing about these little trees and things, especially near the tops of these buildings, is that it then marks the boundary of the rooftop. See? As long as you don't go out into the roof all too much like that, it marks the boundary, brings it out of the sky a little bit. That probably should have used a bit more, few different tones in here. Just still influence this section a bit. Create more variation in the colors and the things here. Maybe there's some trees or something here on that side as well. Just a lot indication. A bit of sap green there. Carry that on. Great. Okay, that's looking all right. And now I'm going to move into the boats. So a little blue here for the boats. Blue. Coming across. And I just want to darken these boats, especially down the sides of them. That, and then maybe get an indication of a shadow on the ground as well. So the boats definitely need to stick out more. That's for sure. And a bit of that there. Just getting that long sort of shape of the boat in. It's going to be indicate that something's there. Then for the little, reflections and things, I'm just going to add in a little bit of a neutral tint or a darker color into the tint. Bit of a shadow, sharper shadow running through the water like this. Reflections, I mean, of them running through in sections like this. Yeah. This is also going to help liven up this water too. Just as light as possible, and got these all kinds of things in here. We've got these poles and bits of the bridge, which we want to try to get in roughly at the same time. That, yeah, there, there, there. Darkness underneath. Well, join things up. Okay. These little, tiny little strokes here are so important. Add a bit of life to the water. If you're having trouble getting them in, just swap over to a smaller brush. This here, I don't use it very often. It's a #1 round brush. But that just allows you to get a bit more control if you're having some issues with getting in a few of these little strokes, especially when we're looking off here into the distance. Okay, I'm basically moving my arm back and forth to get in a few little indications of the water like that. Get the waves just get smaller as we move into the background and like lighter as well. Having a few of those, again, lighter waves as we move into the background, create more depth. And as we move forwards, they get a bit darker like this. Connect with the boats as well. Try to draw them all in like kind of one big shape. Ones have already dried. There's not much we can do, but just get in a few little strokes like that running through. A few little into the foreground. This, same with this one here. Do this relatively. And you almost done. Figures. So what I want to do is just add in some little shadows and things. I'm going to mix up some purple, a bit of whatever I've got in the palette. Any grays or anything I can just drop in, so we can, for example, just put in a bit of darkness for this person's shirt here. Yeah. Remember, the light's coming in from that back section, so we just want to preserve a bit of light running across back like that. Figure here, little color underneath the shirt, maybe a bit running across her face like this. Yeah, yeah, that. Leg is obscured with the light. A bit of shadow and the light hitting the side of that trolley there. And I'll emphasize this even more later on. I'll go over it again with probably like a third wash later. Okay, but this is just bringing these figures forwards more, because at the moment they all just look a bit too pushed back. We want to bring them forward to the foreground. That some cooler color running across the shadow of the person's. Excellent. Color. We'll do the same thing with some of these people just sitting down. So just a bit of color there running towards that back side of them. Yeah. Yeah. But we want to preserve that lovely yellow there as well, the lighter tones. Yeah, same here. Left hand side, a little bit of color, a little bit of darkness there, consistent with the light source. Heads as well, a bit of hair color or something like that, the darkness there running across. Great. Oops, that one's up dark. Then of course, pop in the dark areas of just some of the shadows. So I'm going to pick up, it's all too dark, but maybe like a bit of cooler shadow, a bit of purple or blue mixed in with my neutral tint. Let's get in shadow coming across here, foreground like that. This can be for this figure here. Oops, something like that. And then this one here, with shadow here, just coming across again in that same pattern like that, underneath the foot here as well. And I'll probably have to redo these shadows a bit more later as well. I'm feeling. Again, these shadows for the figures sitting down here as well, there's going to be a bit of a shadow cast toward the side. Yeah. Oop, forgotten this one. Yeah. Figure there. Picked up put a bit as well one time to this. Yeah. Shadow. Yeah. 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 This one I'm just continually darkening and altering as we go. That. 𝗪𝗚𝗓𝗡𝗧𝗏. I got your name correct. I'm turning into a pumpkin, and it is time to say goodnight. Thank you for the demonstration. Thanks, Patricia. Thanks for joining. I know it's getting pretty late for some of you guys, so we appreciate you hanging around. Remember, look, if you really have to go, sleep's more important. So this video is always going to be up, so you don't have to worry about it disappearing or anything like that. So yeah, just let me know if you have any questions afterwards or you need a bit of help. Okay. One thing we forgot to do is this. What do you call it? This lamp. So I'm just trying to find myself a smaller brush. This one will do. Number 6 round brush. I'm going to pick up some neutral tint and we'll keep it light to begin with, sort of light. Let's get in the shape of the hole. That's where it touches the ground. So yep. Bring this all the way to here. Yeah. We can sort of detail a little bit. We'll probably go into it a bit later. Detail extra bits and pieces there. And really, like off camera, what I'll do is that I'll just pick out and emphasize some of the shadows more. I'll give it another wash. Just do the same thing, but I'll just emphasize that again, so it's not light in areas. Sort of just look over and see what needs further darkening here and there. Like for example, these figures. Okay, we got to get in the shadow also for this. So we're going to go just put that in, kind of running towards the left hand side in the same direction as all these other figures and things, and we a bit more here with this shadow because it's a completely straight object, so that shadow has to be quite accurate. Straight like that. So this is pretty much the nuts and bolts of this, and I will go through and look here. I've put in a few little lines for the ground like that, emphasizing these bits of the marble and marble slabs like that. Well, but essentially we are pretty much done. After the video, what you can do is, like I suggested, and sort of what I do as well, just work on it a little bit more, emphasize bits and pieces of the shadows. I want to put in some more waves. You might want to draw in some more details for the boats. One thing that we've certainly forgotten is these little poles sticking out of the water. So these are actually quite dark. So you know, just little emphasis on these poles. Try to get them in quite quickly as well. Leave areas of the poles where it like skips well, so that it looks like the light is sort of hitting and skipping over parts of it. But one line like that should do a trick like that. Essentially, we are pretty much done with this one. I'll go in later, add in a few extra bits and pieces here. But I hope you guys are doing okay. You know, I'm going to leave this one, and but if you have questions, please let me know. And I'm going to pretty darken over the left sides of these figures later. But I do want to go through a quick demonstration. I know we've already hit the 2-hour mark, but I'm going to show you how to do a really quick wet on wet landscape. That's roughly based on the reference picture that I put through. This is going to be a fun little thing. But I'll check the chats before we move on. Joni. So Joni's got a question. Joni Remington, can you share how you will bring out the boats a bit more? Yeah, so what I'll do is basically just pick up some more of that blue and, drop it in, say, underneath here. That might have an edge of the gondola, so sort of a bit more detail like that. Darken underneath a little bit so that it sticks out from the water a little bit more, okay? We don't want to overdo it as well, otherwise the eye is just going to be drawn to that section. We can go in and even use a bit of white gouache to draw out little details, put in little highlights, the main things that signify to a person that it's a boat. So these little bits that pop out on the ends, the shadows underneath, maybe bits of cloth and things like that. That's all you need to do to indicate, yes, there's a boat or something in there. So, but with that said, though, I don't think the boats that I've done in here, I've done these gondolas a lot better in the past. I'm not too happy with them. These ones are okay, but this one here, I think I could have done a lot better. This one here as well. But, later on I can try again to bring out, add more detail with those little tips I've suggested. So, checking again the questions. What is Venitas? What is the focal area of this painting? Yeah, that's a pretty good question. I think I like having these figures, this area probably here of the buildings, where we've got contrast between light and dark. Also this area here where we've got the lamp that's sticking out of the water. So any area where you've got contrast between light and dark, normally I put the focal points and areas that I want to direct the viewer's attention to sort of in the third section. So if you divide the sort of painting into three segments and draw a line across, just these segments here where there's like these third areas here and here, they're good areas to put focal points. You don't want to put it right in the center because it's just going to look too obvious. It's like drawing a picture of a house right in the center of the page. It just looks it's too obvious of a plot. Mara, question from Mara, what brand paints? Your cobalt blue is so vibrant. So it's the vibrancy really, with all the different watercolor paints, it doesn't make a huge difference. You just got to remember to keep the consistency of paint. It still needs to be transparent when you apply it. A lot of people tend to put, when I started out as well, put too much paint onto the page, and then basically the way watercolors works is the light hits the paper and then reflects through, bounces back, and it comes through that blue or whatever paint you're using. So it still needs to remain transparent. I'm using Mijello. I use a few different brands of paints. Here, this whole palette I've got, half of them are just Schminker paints, and the rest of them are just topped up with a bit of Mijello. But the blue I'm using there, they're Mijello's a cobalt blue, got an ultramarine and a cerulean. That's a Mijello cerulean blue, and it doesn't granulate. That's the good thing. That's what I like about that cerulean blue. But granulation is also nice. It just depends on what kind of effect you'd like to get. I've also got some Daniel Smith paints in here as well. And Jill Jones, where is the landscape photo? I don't see it under the discussion. So it should be, it's the first post that I pinned up there. If you're having troubles finding it, I'll give you a hand afterwards. Just message me on my profile. Give you a hand, but it should be under the discussions, the first post. If you scroll up to the beginning of the chat, I've posted the link as well, and that will take you straight to the that area of the discussion. Okay. Thanks, Darren. I have to redo this piece because my perspective is out. Yeah, look, it's a work in progress, I think, and sometimes doing a scene multiple times just gets you a bit more comfortable with how you're going to arrange the elements. I think the perspective on this one was a bit funny because I'd shifted this line here because I wanted to create a bit more sort of an interesting sort of composition. But essentially, it's still quite similar. It still follows that 1 point perspective in there. So anyway, I'm gonna move this off, and we're gonna do a real quick wet on wet landscape. Okay, so if you guys have a blank sheet of watercolor paper, grab that out. If you're working from a sketchbook, just grab that sketchbook out. This isn't going to take very long, hopefully about half an hour max, just to show you the basic, way that I do these wet on wet watercolor landscapes. They're great for practicing your skills in just knowing when to go into the paper when it's essentially when it's wet at different points. So just set this up so that it looks, so you can see my palette as well. Move some of these things away. That. Okay. Great. Mara, yeah, the bridge was hard with no reference. Yeah, some of these things that if you end up drawing them over and over again, it becomes a lot easier to do it from memory. I'm no good really at drawing and painting from memory, but there are certain things that I just constantly do, which especially these lamps, certain shapes that I can pull off. But another thing you can do, you can pick up other references and try to combine them together. You can just, check out, search for bridges, Venice or something, and then just pick a bridge off and add it in. It's all just trial and error. Okay. Now, we're going to go through and do this one very quickly. And I'm going to bring up the reference picture. Now, the reference, I'll just put it up, swap it over. Where is it? Here we go. So this is the reference. I'm sure you guys can see it, and it doesn't. This one you don't need to keep. You don't really need to see much of the detail on this reference. It's almost 2 to 3 tones. This entire scene. A lot of it's just mid tones anyway. So I'm going to wet the paper first, and the water that I'm using. I'm actually going to change the water a bit, so just give me a moment. I'll swap the water around because I don't want to get too much blue into the sky just yet. Okay, here we go. Some clean water. And I am going to wet the entire section of the paper. So the entire bit of paper. So just like that. And how do you tell if the paper's completely wet or not? Well, just turn the paper onto a slight angle or look at it from a slight angle and you should be able to see a kind of sheen on the paper. Okay? And what I want to do is just really get this paper pretty saturated, okay, and let the water really soak in to it. So sort of wait for a bit, even after you've put the water in. You don't want to just drop the paint in straight away. The issue is also that the paint will just bloom all too much and go all over the place. You want to kind of wait. I've taped the paper down because when you work wet onto wet, This is what happens is the paper will just buckle and warp all over the place. It becomes a bit difficult to sort of work on it. You can clip the edges down, or you can blue tack the corners down as well. That works. Just whatever you got to keep that paper flat. And I'm just going over this paper, and I'm working flat as well. Okay. And the reason I'm working flat is just so that I don't get too much water and paint running down the page. So what I put in there is just going to be more predictably just sort of spread out in each direction in a controllable manner. If you have it on an angle, what will happen is that the water will run down. And for this particular painting, I don't really want that to happen. I want to have a little bit more control. Okay, so that's all pretty, you know, the whole section is pretty much wet now. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off by putting in all of the lighter sections first. And I'll just quickly answer a question by Sandra. So Sandra's asking, do you have any suggestions for learning how to draw the figures? I'm pretty lost with them. Look, figure drawing is a thing in itself. It's I think a good way to learn for me anyway, especially if you're not comfortable with you know, drawing figures, is to pick up a bunch of references that have like crowds of people, people walking in different directions. Maybe they're like a city scene or something like that, and use that to sketch the people in different sort of poses. And there's a whole bunch of tutorials that you can find online as well that are more kind of specialized and would explain it a whole lot better than I do with drawing figures. But I always try to make sure that the head fits into the entire length of the figure 7.5 to 8 times. So the size of the head is really important. There's a few little tips there. If you watch some of my previous videos as well, I do talk a little bit about this. I think I'd made actually a little a previous video, if you check on the Watercolor Mentor like videos, where I talk about figures, and I actually show you how I paint like simple figures in with a brush without any drawing, and just sort of judge the heights. So but I hope that helps a little bit. So we are going to go in firstly, and we're going to put in the sky section. And I've got here some 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 yellow. Drop that in. Let's have a look. Bit of yellow there. Okay. There. Bit more. Don't be afraid to just get in there. Okay. Bit of that yellow. Bring that down here. I'm going to add in a little orange as well. Mix this bit of orange. This all the way kind of across. There are some sections where there are lighter bits as well, so you want to just vary that yellow a little. Bit of that. Have a bit of red. Put in a little bit of red in there as well. Just sort of playing around with these tones used, but the main thing is that we just want some warmth in here. Okay, this is a kind of pink color, like a magenta there. Okay, with essentially this reference picture, we've just got all this sort of sky area, and it moves down, and it reflects the sky. So we're going to want to get in some more yellow in here as well. And I got the sun coming through the center like this, and then the rest of it is just all this dulls down almost on the sides, but we'll get a bit of color in like that as well. I'll go over the top of it with some color later. So that's essentially how we want to start off. We want to start off with all the lighter colored yellows and things like that first. Then what I'm going to do, we're going to pick up a bit of, I think I'm going to go with a bit of purple, purplish gray color. A purpley kind of gray, and a thicker kind of mix. I'd say 50% water, 50% color. Okay. And let me just drop this in like that. Let's have a look. Okay. I'm going to get a larger sort of cloud-like shape here, that right-hand side. And remember that the trick to this is also to leave in as much of the yellow as you can too. So you have a combination of colors in here, and having some darker tones mixed in as well. So important. But leaving in those lighter sort of yellow tones. Well, so join up these clouds. I'm just trying to get in big cloud shapes. Okay. You might notice there's a section you want to darken. Go back in there and drop in a bit more paint. This is the great thing when you're working wet into wet. You can just really play around and change things up. So Jen Remington's asking, what brush are you using? This brush is just a quill mop brush. Okay, it's just a mop brush, watercolor mop brush. It's a number 2. You can use a large round brush as well for this if it holds enough water. You can also use a large flat brush too. So I just tend to use a mop brush for this because it picks up a lot of water. Hope that answers your question. James Alcon, thanks for lesson and inspiration. Thanks for coming along, James. And yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. And we are going to play around with this sky more. I'm going to be using my number 10 brush now. At this point, the paper is it's not dried, but it's almost beginning to dry. So when you put in paint at this point, you'll notice that it doesn't spread as much. So you get a bit more it stays in its spot a little bit more than, say, the bits at the top that we were playing around before with. Just move the brush around in these weird, random positions as well. Get a bit more variation in these cloud shapes. Okay. One thing to remember as well is that these cloud shapes are still pretty light compared to what we're going to put in afterwards with the trees and things like that, which is still a kind of purplish color. I'm going to pop them in just a moment, but I want to let this water settle in a little bit more first. Okay, and play around with these clouds and get in. Looking at the reference, we can see some of the clouds just have a bit more darkness in some areas. So I want to emphasize that. Okay, let me sum up the top here. And this will all just blend in nicely once we're done. Okay, a bit more darkness here underneath that cloud there. Might have a bit here. A bit running across. I'm trying to just get some more strength into some of the clouds, the bottom areas of some of these clouds. But preserving that beautiful yellow is so important. One thing to remember is with the clouds up the top, they're going to be darker and larger. As we move down, it's going to get a little bit lighter and smaller. So you notice the ones at the bottom, I'm trying not to emphasize them all too much, just having them move downwards, but not a whole lot. Now, the horizon line is around here, the center of the page. Okay, about where I want to stop. I'm also going to go in a little bit further downwards, get in a little bit of color into the bottom. I'm going to just also add in a tiny bit more blue to this mix. With the blue, bits of this across like that. Yeah, bits of blue like that, and bring that across there. I'm trying to leave in a fair bit of that light as well. So important to leave in that light. Okay, but these little tones here, these little bits of darker tones and stuff are so important. Now, at these sort of points as well, I'll kind of stand away from the photograph, from the painting, and just look at it from an angle, distance, I mean, and just see how it looks. Okay, that. Just painting, just dropping in paint, and we're letting the water do all the painting for us. Actually darker down this section here at the front. Just a bit more darkness there. Yep. Okay. Great. Now I think this is about the right time where I can go in and get in a bit more detail for this area here, where we're going to bring out the land. And with the land, essentially, we're just going to drop in darker paint. And I've got myself some neutral tint here. But what I'd like to do also is mix up all my primaries. So we've got some red, got some ultramarine blue here. We've got a bit of yellow here. Maybe more blue. Cooler sort of color. That. We want this to be pretty dark, almost, you know, it's mostly paint, let's say, in this section. It's mostly paint. 3/4 paint, 1/4 water. We'll give it a try. You know, we've got a sort of section here. Look, give it a try. And remember, like, the trick is to make sure the brush is still pretty dry when you're going in. Okay? Where does it end? It ends kind of around here, right? So some furriness around the edges. Okay, drop that in there. Okay, and this comes all the way down. Okay. Finishes around that here. Got more sections here on that right hand side. I'm going to pick up a few, you know, some brown here as well. Vary up that color. Okay. Some more trees and things all around that horizon line there. Larger one there. A bit more blue in there if you want to vary up the color. A large one that sort of sticks out the edge like that. There. Okay. So there we have it. We've got a little trees and things here in the background. And what we're going to do, we're going to carry this a little bit further down. So bring this across that. So we've got continuation, blending, continuous sort of blending of these colors as they move down. Get some sharper little bits here. Whoops, that's probably too sharp. Here. Yeah. It moves down the page. A bit more color here. A bit more here. Little bits and pieces sticking out as well. I'll show you how to scratch them out as well later on. If the brush is too big, I'm starting to feel like it's getting a bit too much. I'll pick up a smaller brush and use this to then drop in some smaller shapes. But adding in more of color, drop in that color in here. How are you guys doing? I haven't really heard much from you. I hope you're keeping up, and I hope you're awake. I know we've been going on for quite some time now, and yeah, let me know if you're carrying on okay. If you need anything from me, otherwise I'm just going to continue on and do my thing. Now, I'm just getting in some of these mid-tones like through this section here. Maybe a little bit of crossover sections in this bit so that it doesn't look all yellow in that section. So horizontal lines crossing over the section. That, okay. I'm also starting to feel the areas in the background that need a bit more attention, a bit more color in some parts. I might, while I can, just some spots to darken up areas. But you want to leave that top there. That's already, it's already created a soft shadow shape against the sky. I'm going to leave that in. You can also pick up things like if you've got a rigger, or you've got a one of these brushes here, which is basically a small, call it a small fan brush. Use this to get soft marks that run up the page like this, indicate these like shrubs and things here. I'm going to show you how to get some lighter sort of shrubs in too. But we'll do these little darker sections first like that. If you don't have a fan brush, you can use a smaller brush, a rigger, or you can use a very small round brush. And you can accomplish the same thing. It's just you can take a little bit more time to get in this individual strokes. But you can do things like pick up a bit of paint, do something like that. We'll do the same trick. You don't have a rigger, you got a number four round brush. Pick that up, go in like. With this wet and wet watercolor technique, you are just slowly adding in detail as the paper dries. You reach different stages of dryness of the paper, which as you add in more and more detail, it starts to look sharper, details that you add in. So try to add in a bit of the branch or something out in the back here. Can't really see it. It just blends in with the sky. But if we go in later, you're going to get a bit more, little bit more detail there, a little bit more sharpness. Okay? And the combination of these sharp sort of shapes mixed with the softer shapes creates a lot more interest. This is just a bit of brown I've decided to put in here. That, and even put in a bit of green. Some spots maybe here as well. There's like little bits that come over onto the near the water. That section like that. Yeah. Here as well. Yeah. That. Touch and go, really. It's just touch and go. Let it sit and spread into this section of the painting. Okay. And when the paper has almost dried, it's almost at the damp stage, what you can do is you can actually scratch out little highlights. So I often use a few different things. Use a little pocket knife like this, or you can use like a credit card as well. It probably is not the right stage to do it yet. It hasn't completely dried. But in sections like, say, here, notice, look at that, created a bit of a mark on the page. So more sort of in these corners where section here, for example, that allows you to put in little shapes of trees and things like that. Scratch out some details off in the distance. Sharpness, little sharp sections in here. Like that. Joni, just reading through the chats. Joni, thank you on the brush. You're welcome. And Paula, please send notifications to me. I love the class. Thanks, Paula. With the notifications, like I don't know if you can. What you can do, you can follow the page, Watercolor Mentor page. You can follow my page as well, Darren Art, and you'll get a notification every time I go live. But the videos are available if you just go onto either page, either the Darren Yu art page or Watercolor Mentor page, and hit onto videos in Facebook, and you'll be able to find it. If you're on YouTube, it's the videos are just available on there, pretty much just in the video section, the newest videos. So you won't have any issues finding it on there. If you guys haven't checked out my YouTube channel, please have a look. And if you're enjoying the video and you've enjoyed this little workshop, what I ask is just to please share it with people that you know, because it really helps me to get myself out there a little bit more, and also allows me to reach more people so that I can just sort of share some of my tips, techniques, and things like that too. Um, really love seeing everyone's like paintings and drawings afterwards. It's just amazing um, to have that impact, I guess, and it's good fun for me. So I appreciate that. Have a look. It's the comments. Kate, such a great morning, Darren. Thank you. I must go now. I'll let it dry and finish later. Enjoy your week. Thanks, Kate. I mean, it's a nice day today. Um, I'll catch you. I'll catch you next time. Angeline, this is beautiful. Love the effects. Thanks for the tutorials. Thanks, Angeline. Um, Shanolan, thank you for another wonderful class. You're welcome, Shanolan, and appreciate you watching and coming along as well so much. So this one, look, it's almost done. Really, I'm just fiddling around to add in a few little bits and pieces. You'll notice as well, paper down the bottom hasn't completely dried. It's still slightly damp, but we can get away with adding in a bit of darkness in here, which will separate the land out a little bit. Good time as well to pick up a bit of neutral tint, a bit of dark paint. If you want to get in some like tree shapes here, you can go ahead and do that. Notice the paint does spread a little bit, but not that much. Little branches here in the back. Get in a larger one here, all the way up sky, like that. Another one here, maybe. Some rigor I've got. Okay. Love getting in combinations of these like sharp objects and sharp sort of shapes joined onto the more softer background like that. So that I might turn into like it's a bigger trunk or something here side. Just experiment and find what works for you. Probably I've overdone it a bit, but there. Just add it down this side. Coming at strokes there. And notice like everything that I'm drawing at this stage, it's more or less staying as it is. So it's not really spreading much into the sky. So that's one of the benefits of just waiting a little bit longer, getting in some of this section in like that. Little bits of things here, even this stuff in the foreground here, area of the water, notice that it started to dry a fair bit as well, which now allows me to do this sort of stuff. Add in some darker bits. And it's always going to dry a little bit lighter than what it looks like as well here. So that's what I'm doing, and just little bits of this like kind of shrubs and things. Some coming straight through the center and like, yeah. Well, you want to join this up a bit. You want to have a bit of, the shrubs just moving across sections of there. I do think that there needs to be a bit more going on in the, just a bit darkness. A bit of going on there. And maybe some shrub here in the foreground. Darker one somewhere down the bottom. Here maybe as well. Try get a bit of variation of shapes and things. Just a question from Paula. This is my first time. Fantastic. Welcome to your first lesson. I hope you're enjoying it. May I ask, do you have a schedule of your live classes? So I'm trying to do them every weekend, Saturday, 10:30 Melbourne time. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, like each Saturday. You know, I've got a lot of time, well, a lot more time these days because we're in lockdown here in Melbourne. Also, perhaps trying to stream during a weekday. But we'll see how we go. I'm trying to, yeah, I've scheduled them for each Saturday these days, and I've got quite a few lined up as well. Already finished sort of classes, so you can check, you can have a look in the videos list, and there's a few in there that I've already done. I think this is number 13. So you can have a look at what else I've done. But yeah, if you check the page, it will always alert you. And if you like that Watercolour Mentor page, just sign up for the notification, have you, and it will let you know when I've got a next sort of class on. Hope that helps. Ben, thanks very much, Darren. Great morning. Thank you so much for coming along. Jennifer Walker, I'm new to this, loved watching your mind and spirit making its way to the paper. Thank you. Oh, thanks so much, Jennifer. And yeah, I guess I try to I guess let you guys see a little bit into what's going on in my head when I'm putting any paint to the paper or just drawing. And a lot of the time it's just unfiltered, really. It's just whatever's coming out of my head at the time. So I hope that's helpful for you guys to see my thought process. I don't know. I sometimes feel I kind of talk a bit much, but I'm glad it's helping you. Great. And continue on. And a few more of these trees. We actually get we can get all these. You check out these trees here. I'm getting some vertical ones just going straight up. A few that are just a bit taller than the other ones. I think that's gonna create a bit more interest, like that. You can really go on forever. Just keep on doing this sort of thing. Okay. Now you're getting some sharper sort of shapes here. But this is really all there is to it. Okay, I don't really have all that much else to talk about in terms of this one. Let me know how you guys are going, and if you need me to go through anything else with this, probably the last thing I'll do is just sort of scratch out sort of white here on the paper, some bits and pieces here, and this helps to get in a little contrast as well. The stuff here in the foreground, something like that. I also want to increase the darkness a little bit in the foreground sections, so maybe a bit of darkness here in the edges of the paper, just a little bit. That. Apart from that, I'm pretty happy with this. So what we can do is just start removing the paper. I'll show you what it looks like without the tape on. It always looks so much better when you take the tape off. It frames the frames the painting a bit more. That. Right. There we go. Oh, Patricia, thanks so much for the coffees, Patricia. I only just saw that pop up. Sometimes I miss them because I'm just looking down at the page. So if I haven't acknowledged anyone, I apologize. Really appreciate anyone that's sort of watching along and supporting me. You know, even just by being here, I've really appreciated it. I feel quite lucky to just have you guys around. It helps me motivate myself to paint more as well. And each time I finish a painting, you know, just feeling like I've improved or learned something from doing that, it's great. So if I can do anything to sort of help you and to understand a little bit more, make it fun for you too, I feel it's just something great I can put out there into the world. So thanks so much. Ellen Whitney. I like doing these really loose paintings. I'm trying to bring some looseness and spontaneity in my work because I'm an extremely detailed and tight painter. Yeah, I've almost tried to go the opposite way, to be honest. I can be quite lazy at times when I'm painting, and like I try to think of the most simplest way to draw something in, and these spontaneous sort of paintings just make it very easy for me to get started. I can kind of pick up a bit of paper, a bit of paint real quickly, and just go in and get into it straight away. But it's really just a preference at the end of the day. There's no right or wrong. And, love painters who are able to just capture. Really respect painters who can capture just a strong likeness or just a strong detail in things. I think it takes so much patience, but I'm glad you're enjoying it. And thank you so much for being here. Nancy, oh boy, did this take me out of my comfort zone. Here's my effort. I can't see your painting, Nancy. You want to maybe try posting it again? I think in the chats it's very hard to sort of see. It just doesn't show up in the chats, but if you can post it on it's like a watercolor community group, you can post in there. I'll take a look. Love to see it. Thank you, Joni, coming along. Nancy Murray. Nancy, oops, can't work out how to send the picture. Yeah, yeah, you can check out the groups. If you look onto the event page that you got onto, the Facebook event page, the groups are actually listed in the first page down the bottom, so you can have a look. There's a few there. You can the main one is that Watercolor Mentor community group. I've also got a Watercolor beginners group. It's got a lot of people in there. That's more of a general community, so you can post in there as well, get a bit of feedback. And Ellen, I'm an engineer programmer, so I'm naturally detailed. Wow. Yeah, and it's so funny because I work with a lot of numbers as well in my normal day job, and people always get surprised when I tell them, you know, I do art as well, because people think that it's we don't normally associate art with things like a very structured process. But to be honest, a lot of the things we do in art has there is a process that you can follow, but there's a lot of leeway and a lot of tolerances. It's not like in engineering where you've got very tight tolerances and things to make something safe. There's almost a set of recommended procedures, and you can follow those procedures exactly, or you can go a bit out and sometimes create new procedures. It's yeah, what I love about art, just gives you that freedom. Marie Maxwell, thanks, Darren. I enjoy your classes and can do things I didn't know I can do. And I love to hear stuff like that. Um, like one thing that I always found was like I'd see in these group that I was making watercolor beginners, and people would try, one or two paintings, and they just give up. And it's such a shame because it's not something that comes overnight. And when you practice more, and especially when you have the motivation to do it with a community like us here, it just becomes so much um, more easier to get into things because you're doing things together. It's like when you're going to a gym and you're exercising by yourself. Some people can do that completely fine, but it always helps when maybe you've got a friend that comes along with you and you kind of can what do you call it, Mm, motivate each other and work each other up, kind of thing to help motivate. Um, so that's always a good thing. Gregorio, thank you, Darren. As always, a great class. I did not do great with Venice. I only did a pencil sketch. I did the wet on wet though, and I will share it. Fantastic. Would still like to see your Venice scene though. That would be nice. Um, and if you don't get things the way you want it the first time round, just keep trying and just keep showing up, and good things will happen. It's not always it's not always happy times when you're painting. You sometimes you spend all this time doing something, and at the end, it doesn't look anything like what you wanted. But I can say one thing for certain: once the main kind of concepts sink in terms of like tone and you get comfortable doing certain scenes, the success rate of your paintings, or the paintings that you think in your mind kind of pass that standard which you're kind of happy to show people and you're kind of okay with it in general, it increases significantly um, once you got a bit of a process down packed. These days, most things I paint, I've got a bit of a structure of how I'm going to approach it, what I'm going to do, and they all kind of turn out okay. I don't really have any paintings that I really dislike. There are some like the experimental stuff that I try out, and they don't really look anything like I want them to. But that's fine. I think you kind of got to scare yourself every now and then and try something different. A bit more. This is just some little finishing. And keep doing this forever, really. The finishing touches are always the bits that take almost the longest, depending on how much you want to pop in there. Let me have a look if there's any more chats. Wendy came in late and have only been able to manage this last loose landscape. Very moody. Yeah, it's a kind of atmospheric sort of scene, and amazing how much like you can imply with just what is wet and wet technique. And if you look real close at it, it doesn't look like much, but from a distance, it really looks like a sort of softer landscape scene. I have a very wet piece of paper now. I might have to dry a little before I can complete. Thanks for a great workshop yet again. Yeah, thanks a lot, Wendy, for coming along. And look, the only way that you can sort of figure out the stages of when to put in paint to wet paper is to wet the paper and then immediately put in some paint, watch and observe how it spreads. Wait for another minute, touch another bit of the section, watch and observe, and do this at different intervals. And just try to paint different landscapes, and eventually your mind will just know around about when it's right to pop in. You just think, oh, it just feels right to put it in now. And I still haven't mastered this myself. I don't know if I ever will, but I'm getting closer to that every time I do it. So that's how I know at a certain point, if I put in this tree, I want to get a tree that looks sharp. If I want to portray what's in my mind on this paper, I need to do that at a certain time, and that's when that paper is dried, about 3/4 of the 3/4, dry 3/4. So frustration comes when you know, as a painter, you're thinking this is what I want to portray, and then you're looking at what you've done, and it just doesn't look anything like what you want. You can't always have it look like what you want, but mastering some of these techniques, not mastering, but I guess getting more familiar with some of these techniques helps you to be able to portray what you want to. And technical ability is not everything, but it forms a very important basis for being able to portray a scene that in the way that you want to. If you've got a larger repertoire of techniques and understanding, then you just essentially have more choices. It's like having different tools to work with. You know, if you've only got a screwdriver, you can only do certain things with that. But if you've got a whole bunch of different you know, ideas and techniques that you know and you've experimented on paper and you know you could do that. Okay, I want to add a person here, but I don't want them to blend into the background. You know how to execute that more effectively. So hope that kind of makes sense. Ellen is an awesome combo. Glenda, this was very hard for me. Thanks heaps. Yeah, look, thanks for coming along and giving it your first try as well. It's not easy. Wet and wet is very difficult to control, but once you learn how to do it, it saves so much time in your painting, and you're able to paint large areas and get in a kind of dreamy and soft feel to things. So you notice everything in here kind of just it joins all into one big cohesive thing. I mean, here I think I could improve on that a lot. It's just put too much darkness down the bottom. I wanted that background to separate a bit more from here, and I wanted it more like on that side. But essentially, you see it, all the shrubs and things all joined together. There's a sense of cohesion. There's nothing that really sticks out and makes you focus and fixate on that area for too long. I'm trying to get to my own style. Watching how you use a reference and changing it up is really helping me to see how to do this. Thank you. I have to lose the idea that it has to look exactly like the picture. Yeah, I've given up trying to make it look exactly like the picture because it would stress me out a lot. And it's things like portraiture. I do portraits every now and they need to look very representative of the person of the reference photo. And different people do this in different ways. Some people can really get a likeness with uh, with just a few, you know, more simpler lines and exaggerating features and things like that. But for me, I feel like I've got to grid out a lot of these photographs and really focus on the drawing for so long. So with landscapes, the great thing is that nature comes in all different you know, shapes and sizes. A blade of grass can look 100. You can have 100 blades of grass, and they all look different. So, you know, a tree can look at, you know, so many variations in trees. So, when you pop in a shape like this, it just can't go wrong there. Nancy managed to download it on Facebook. Thanks so much. Great, Nancy, and thanks for watching. So I think we're pretty much at the end of this now. It's been 3 hours, and I need to get some lunch. So I really appreciate those of you who have hung around for the 3 hours. Really have some amazing concentration skills, or you managed to stay up. But for those of you who had to leave early, you know, the stream is still there, and you can view it. I really appreciate you being there. I'll probably leave the stream for a few more minutes. If anyone has any final questions, just let me know. If you want to watch a little bit more of my content, you can check out my YouTube. You can check out Facebook as well. The videos are all on Facebook and the Watercolor Mentor. Just search Watercolor Mentor. Also got the website watercolormentor.com. It's just it's just a moniker that I chose about a year ago to get some of my content out there because it just kind of makes you know, logical sense. You know, the name. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but anyway, check it out. I'll put this on pause for a little bit, and yeah, if you have anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'll end the stream. Just a moment. Okay, Gion A, thank you, Darren. Enjoy your lunch. I will do 𝗍𝗙𝗕𝗦𝗃. Thank you. There's still a few people on YouTube. How are you guys going? And who's still watching? Oh, 𝗪𝗙𝗕𝗦𝗃. I missed your comment, 𝗪𝗙𝗕𝗦, and good to see you. I remember we 𝗪𝗙𝗕𝗦 made a suggestion a while back to for me to do a wet on wet landscape scenes, kind of similar to this, of a tea, like a tea farm, a tea plantation. That's also, I've got that uploaded somewhere on YouTube. So good to see some of my sort of earlier viewers from almost a year ago actually. Jennifer, watched for the first time. I'm very detail oriented and use this intensity to relax and escape through my art. Need to learn how to loosen up. Thanks so much. Thanks, Jennifer, and I'm glad that you got some help out of this one. All right, everyone. So thanks for joining. I'm gonna end the stream, and if you have any more questions, just feel free to let me know in the comments, and I'll get back to you. But thanks, and I hope to see you next time. That's